The psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic to the college student in Pamantasan Lungsod ng Muntinlupa, a qualitative research presented by Group 8. Ms. Madolid Talia, Palomar, Janmark, Sermino Dayan May, Claveria Kathleen Joyce, Reyes Rosette, and Ms. Salvo Jename. As the coronavirus pandemic rapidly swept across the world, it's included a credible degree of fear, worry, and concern in population at large. The trace back in history in early 2020 after December 2019 outbreak in China. The World Health Organization, or WHO, identified SARS-CoV as a new type of coronavirus. The outbreak quickly spread around the world. This affects the economy of the country, social values, and psychological stress of the people. We are required to stay put in our own house, yet a lot of people would not feel safe nor at home. These studies embarking on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the student life and on mental health and emotional health. And researchers purported to evaluate before the present experience of the students, perception toward its effects, influence, and other important detail. Specifically, this study aimed to seek answer to the following objectives: to fully understand the unique experiences of students during the COVID-19 pandemic, to identify the psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic affecting the students of Pamantasan Lungsod ng Muntinlupa, and to determine if the COVID-19 pandemic has an impact on the mental health and emotional state of the person.
Research problem. Semi-structured interviews were utilized in this study, which allowed the researcher to gather responses from the respondent flexibly. Questions were validated by an expert in the field to ensure that the needed data will be elicited. The questions were the following. First, what are the experience of the PL1 students during the COVID-19 pandemic? Second, what are the main changes to PL1 students' lifestyles after the pandemic broke out? Third, how are the COVID-19 pandemic affects the mental health of college students in the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Muntinlupa?
Chapter 3, Methodology. Our research design, we use individual interviews because it is a qualitative research design. So the method, it was based on phenomenology. So we wanted to know, to describe the perceptions and lived experiences of those students in the Pamantasan and Lungsod ng Muntinlupa. Next slide, please. The participants of our study are 5 students in the Pamantasan and Lungsod ng Muntinlupa. So they are at the College of Arts and Science, major in political science and psychology in the academic year 2021-2022. Next slide, please. These are the data collection procedures. Firstly, the researcher briefed the participants of the COVID-19 health protocols for safety, and they are given time to read and answer the essay. Secondly, the researchers, with the consent of the participant, perform an audio recording during the interview. Thirdly, the researcher wished to be transparent, and as a result, the participants were given the interview guideline. Fourth, the participants were interviewed individually by the researcher in a private and quiet room. Lastly, the audio recorder was used during each interview. Next slide, please. This is the diagram of our validation process. Next is the data analysis. We used 5 steps for data analysis. Step 1, transcription. Step 2, checking and editing. Step 3, analysis and interpretation. Step 4, generalization. Step 5, validation. Next slide, please. Our ethical considerations. The participants were more important than our study, and therefore, they're always respected. Next slide.
For the results showed that there are 5 themes that come up after the interview were conducted. Here are the following. Next, nakakaramdam ng pag-alala, stress at anxiety. Above all the themes, nakararamdam ng pag-aalala, stress at anxiety is the main response of the college students on the impact of the pandemic to their mental health. All of the respondents answered that they all experienced worries, stress, and anxiety during the COVID-19 pandemic. Pagsubok sa sarili at pamilya. 4 out of 5 respondents have responded that the pandemic had affects their challenges on oneself and their family. Next one. Nahihirapan sa pag-aaral. The frequent effect of pandemic was students struggle with their studies, and this was proved by the 5 respondents. and malaking pagbabago sa oras ng pagtulog. Another effect of the pandemic were the significant changes to the sleeping habits of the students. 3 out of 5 respondents stated that they are having trouble sleeping at night, and school activities, family-related concern, and many more issues trigger their insomnia. Next, please. Nakakaramdam ng lungkot. Last thing that was revealed by the study conducted was 3 out of 5 students felt unhappy during pandemic. Next.
Next slide, please. Now let's proceed with the discussion of the main findings. The researchers find out that COVID-19 pandemic has a negative impact affecting the psychological state of college students. Hence, the positive impact of the pandemic results in a stronger and closer relationship of students to their families and friends. This analysis consists of 5 steps: the transcription, checking, editing analysis, interpretation, and verification. So the result shows that student experiences worry about safety, stress, and anxiety, which are known as the impact of pandemic. Aside from that, these students are having a lot of difficulties and challenges in themselves and their family. Students lost their time, their sense of time, and they experience sadness due to the movement restriction of the government, affecting the communication and relationship of the respondents to their friends. So now let's proceed with our conclusion.
Conclusion. Therefore, we conclude that the COVID-19 pandemic has an adverse favorable impact on the psychological state of college students, such as worries, stress, anxiety, challenges with self, family problems, difficulties in studying, challenges in sleeping pattern, and feeling of sadness. A lot of studies have demonstrated that college students have been suffering those impacts during the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a need for qualitative phenomenological study among students, which explores the unique experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic. And research is an eye-opener to society about the challenges and difficulties that the students face in this time of COVID-19 pandemic. Now, let's go to the recommendation. For our recommendation, this research is hereby recommends the following to the government, private sectors, and health organization must provide psychosocial and mental health services alongside with the healthcare services. To the universities, must recognize the mental and psychological needs of their students and provide basic activities. To the university student council and organization, they must coordinate with the virtual activities to outreach to the students who are affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. To the parents, acknowledge and appreciate the efforts of the students in surviving online learning. To the future studies, the researchers recommend that future studies should include mental disorders and coping strategies of the students.
To end up our presentation, the last slide shows the documentation of our journey to the studying research. Thank you and keep safe. God bless.